All right, we're back. This is stage 4, same day, 11:26 at Lipsa, November 26th. Joe's still with me, and let's watch the stage and we'll break it down. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. We'll break it down. This is another clean stage. Made one error, but overall was very clean. I will criticize and say my reloads could have been a little faster, but this is such a tight, packed stage where you're shooting and standing still, and you just need to be able to shoot quickly, and I did that, but my reloads. So break it down right off the bat. We have 2 paper, 2 steel, clean it up. Just keep a note that my transition speeds on this is solely due to me dry firing and my dry fire routine I pretty much dry fire every day, and the things that I do need to work on currently to make M class from A class is solely need to be done with live fire. I have an issue with moving my arms and my wrists while I'm shooting, especially at speed, more than doubles, I should say. When it's probably on bill drills, I have an issue with not keeping my wrist locked. But needless to say, the transitional stuff that you see me doing is solely developed through dry fire, and it's not even dry firing on big paper targets. It's actually dry firing on post-its, and believe it or not, your light switches are very small and they require you to have a very refined aiming spot. So you're picking a very small space and you're pretty much throwing your gun into that spot, and there's not a lot of room for error. So when I'm going to shoot a real match, getting to the A zone is 3, 4 times the size of a light switch or a post-it. So it's very easy, and that's why you see these incredible transition times. My transitional speeds and my shooting abilities is very good on transition stuff. As you see there, what was that? Maybe 2.5 seconds, if that. And then you come over and transition to the far target. Here is where I need to clean up my shooting ability, is right here from this reload to there. Although that did look seamless, I need to stop throwing my gun away from my body. I need to keep my gun in front of my body and move my eyes to where I'm going. I need to keep this in front of me to keep the space from my magazine to my gun shorter. And I do this a lot, and it's just a habit that I have, and I need to break it. They come in, miss steal, but clean it up. At the shooting speeds, my split speeds, I'm only burning maybe a little more than a tenth, maybe 0.15 seconds, 0.17 seconds, which is really nothing in the grand scheme of things. Now, if my split times were like 0.25, 0.30, then yeah, I'd be burning time because you're over a half a second when you need to go follow up on your third shot. So you're breaking shots at 0.20, you're breaking 5 shots in a second. At 0.25, you're breaking 4 shots in a second, and so on and so forth. It's 0.33, you're only burning 3 shots in a second, and you could see how that adds up over time. So we come up. My reload speed could have been significantly better here. Come in, clean paper. That was my mental error. And although it wasn't significant, it was enough to affect my shooting. As you could see,
You broke your grip.
I did broke down my grip, and only because I was too close to this wall right here. Um, if many of you don't know this, but if you make contact with a wall while you're on a stage, you will get what is it called? You'll get -10. Just put it that way. Yeah, you'll get a procedural, and you'll get -10 just for making contact with the barrier. So you gotta be very careful when you're in these little sectors of fire, not to make sure your body doesn't hit the barrier or your gun. Or if you even shoot the barrier, you'll get a procedural as well. And you'll get a mic on the target. So if you hit the target through the barrier, not only are you gonna get the procedural, you're also gonna get the -10 for the target as well. And you won't count the shot. So -20. That was my mental error, was looking here when I'm supposed to be looking here. And although that didn't seem like a lot of time wasted, it's still time wasted, and it's still my hit factor dropping more than it needs to be. So come in, clean up, straight to steel, amazing transition speeds. Like I said, my transitions are not my problem. And that's that stage. Quick stage. I'll go back to the beginning. Let Joe give you some feedback if he wants to.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna go to the basics here. You could pause it. So, literally, the wings of this stage is a very good example of a mixture between predictive shooting and reactive. Just starting off with literally the first 4 targets, it literally waterfalls down from predictive shooting to reactive. Or the opposite, reactive to predictive. He starts kind of at medium range, where
It's like 7
you're gonna
yards.
wait. What, the target on the right where you started?
Yeah, the one with the no shoot. It's like
It
7
looks
yards.
further than 7 yards.
It's just
No,
the fisheye and the lens that makes it looks like that.
no, the target on the right.
Oh, this target. Yeah, that's probably about like
Yes.
10, 12 yards.
Yeah, so you have kind of like a mixture there, and then the steals are
Probably 15.
probably 15. That's where like you're gonna like where most average are having to be reactive at that point.
And you
Especially
could
if
see
you're
that,
just
and you could
starting
shoot it,
out.
and you could see that in my split times and how fast I'm pulling the trigger at the close paper versus the far steel, which is a good point that you bring up. Although that did look like a seamless transition, my shooting ability from that no shoot to the steel is vastly different, and we could play that. And you could see how much more time I spent to get my dot here and here compared to there, where I just put 2 on paper seamlessly, super fast split, probably under 2 if I had to take a guess. But that's what he
Exactly.
means by reactive and predictive shooting. Now, some of you are not going to know what that means, and that's fine. And some of you will. And when you take a class with us, I could even tell you what that is. When you take a class with us, we actually run a significant amount of drills on paper and steel to give you guys. We run an accelerator drill. An accelerator drill is basically a breakdown between predictive and reactive shooting at speed at varying distances. So we could have a target at 20 yards, we could have one at 15, and we could have one at 10. And your shooting ability, your predictive and reactive shooting ability will be tested on the accelerator drill. Accelerator drill is one of the probably the best drills for overall fundamentals and seeing where you stand just through 6 rounds, and it's pretty good. That being said, I'll let Joe finish his breakdown, but we could go over what predictive and reactive shooting is at the after the breakdown, because some of you are not going to have any idea what that means perfectly.
Yeah, the only other 2 points I'm gonna bring up is the window. It sounds silly, but at this point, like here, Andrew being, I don't know, what are you, 5'10", 6 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has to squat down a significant amount here, and honestly, being like somewhat physically in shape plays a part here, because like you can't hold on to the barrier here, right? That's not one of the windows where you can.
Yeah, you're
So
not
like
allowed to touch the barrier.
so he's holding a squat here, and it's like, granted, you have people who are out of shape who do this kind of shooting, but it would be a little bit easier, and as you get higher into the ranks of shooting, like Master GM, some of the professionals nowadays are actually taking the time to physically get in shape because it's making a difference, as opposed to not being in shape.
Just to reiterate, I want to say this again. This is a sport, and some of these guys are legit athletes that shoot. And to
And
sit
some are
here,
not.
and some are not. And I will say, as the sport progresses over time, you're seeing guys that are winning on the highest levels of USPSA. These guys are all in shape. Christian, JJ, super fit, super in shape, and they win all the time. So this sport is progressing to make guys in shape. And just for anything, this is a combat sport. In any combat sport, you don't want to be out of shape. especially for USPSA, where agility is probably peak skill. Like your agility needs to be the highest it does to be able to be competitive with the most competitive guys. Don't get me wrong, you could definitely be a mediocre and you can come here and be lax and shoot, but you just won't be competitive. So, understanding that this is a sport and there's athletes that do this and you want to be in shape, it will just help you be better. I mean, listen, you're racing against time, and time is at Lipsa the most important. You want to be in shape, you want to have good legs under you. This is a full body sport. You need to use your whole entire body. As Joe said, I'm pretty much squatting this whole entire time. You can't see it because the camera is where the camera is. It's on my head. So you're just going to get what my camera sees. But my eyes are probably right here, right across there, pretty much where my dot is. So I'm going to say my eyes are probably right.
And then just coming after here, like this was great. He gets sucked into the window a little bit, but I wouldn't say anything crazy. It looks more exaggerated because of the lens here, but he already explained the mental error of, breaking down his grip. But then on the wing here, this last transition is another great example of predictive and reactive. It's kind of the same as the other one, except with an added target. One's closer at maybe 5 yards. You have a 5-7, a 10, and a 15 is the steals.
So this is a 8-foot barrier, so that is about 3 yards. This one's probably about 7. This one's probably about 10, and these are probably about 15. I'd say for me in the video, this was predictive shooting. Let's see. That was more predictive. I will say that shooting a blue steel target, although we do miss steel a lot, and there's a lot of guys that miss steel, and it's just a mental thing. Having a blue background with a red dot is significantly easier. Although this target is tall and skinny, this pretty much, as long as you hit steel and knock it down, you get an A. So like this is the width of an A zone right here. This whole thing is the A zone there. So when you come in and you drag your dot, you want your dot to be somewhere here, depending on where your zero. I don't know where your round's gonna fall, but you'll get guys that aim up here just to get maximum leverage to knock down the steel. Don't recommend that. Recommend you shooting the circle. And then this is all predictive. I'm just literally throwing my gun at this side, the dot, and I'm pulling the trigger. I know that my gun is not going to recoil a significant amount, especially at this range. So you're just pulling the trigger twice. Same thing here. Literally throwing my gun into the A zone and pulling the trigger twice. I'm not even paying attention to what the dot is doing. I'm just looking at the target, and that's it. So if Joe wants to explain what predictive and reactive aiming is, he can.
You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right,
you want to cover predictive and I'll cover reactive?
Yeah, predictive is predictive is going to change between all different types of shooters and their skill levels, but predictive shooting, like in a general synopsis, is whatever distance you're comfortable like shooting at without having to look at your dot, like you're just pointing and shooting. So for an example, like here, well, what he just said, like anybody here or anybody who has like some experience on a gun could probably draw their gun and just shoot 2 rounds at a paper target at 3 yards and hit a zone, or at least hit the target. Like, that when you present, like, your fundamentals are so good that when you present your gun, that your barrel, without looking through your red dot, is at the A zone, and you could fire off 2 rounds, bang bang, as quick as you can, and you're gonna hit it. Now, but the ceiling, like the skill ceiling on that, changes based upon the shooter. Like, some people could effortlessly do it at 10 yards, others can't. Some could effortlessly do it at 15 yards, and that just comes with experience, time, dry firing, practicing. Like, this is an old saying that everyone should know, is that practice makes perfect. But yeah, predictive shooting is just when you draw, you're there, and if you fire off 2 rounds, you're gonna hit what you're aiming at without having to get a dot confirmation.
So everything he said is correct, and the skill itself is very important, especially on stages like this, because you will lose the most amount of time in these predictive aiming spots. So if you are over confirming your dot on these 3-yard targets, you're just losing time. Not to say that you're a bad shooter, but you're just
I was
losing
just gonna
time.
say that. Yes, you're not a bad shooter. It's just you haven't broken the habit of, okay, I'm looking down my red dot. It's on target. Let me shoot. And it's like that doesn't make you bad. It's just you lack the time and experience behind the gun of, like, and that could be fixed without shooting live rounds. Like you could, like, going back to the light switch thing, you could do that in your house. Like, I'm sure you could stand in any room in your house and change the distance between you and a light switch and just see, you know, how fast your draw is, and like you're presented. And you could check yourself. If you go to do dot confirmation, you could be like, okay, was I on or was I not on? How far am I off? Like, you could ask yourself those questions by drive by.
Then reactive shooting is a little different. You're not going based off of confidence and your shooting ability. You're going off of more what the dot is doing. So you will, so for me, we'll use me an example. For me, I feel comfortable probably about 15 yards being predictive aiming. It also depends on the type of target. If we have a very small refined space like this no shoot and it sits higher and the only thing we have is the credit card box, 99% of people are going to sit here and they're going to revert to reactive shooting. That's Joe didn't say that, but needless to say, your predictive and reactive shooting are highly dependent on the space available. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people out here, there's many shooters that could actually just passive aim a head box at this distance. Can I confidently do that? If I practice it enough, probably. Now, is that something that comes up on a stage a lot? No, not at all. You'll get the tux. This is not a good representation of a tux, but a tux is basically you're only getting the center of the target, and you'll have the shoulders straight down will be black. Do I feel comfortable taking that at 10 yards? Absolutely. That's center of the target. The center of the target is 6 inches wide. I 100%, I've done it enough times. I know my shooting ability. I'm very confident in my shooting ability. Nail that all the time. If we take this no shoot and we only show the head box, you're going to slow down a little bit. You don't want to shoot the no shoot. You don't want to miss. So you're going to just slow down ever so slightly. Now, is that still considered reactive shooting and passive aiming? Maybe, maybe not. Depends how far it is. Now, straight up reactive shooting, let's say you have we'll use 30 yards, because 30 yards is past that 25 yards range where most people test their skills and their marksmanship at. So we'll use 30 yards. At 30 yards for the A box, when you shoot, if you're aiming at the center of it, your dot is probably going to come up to the head box. Granted, if you're holding the gun and gripping the gun properly. Now, confidently, there are people that could take 30-yard predictive aiming shots. No question. Can I? Absolutely not. I'm going to wait for my dot to settle and then I'm going to pull the trigger. That being said, everybody is a reactive shooter. Not everybody is a predictive shooter. I really hope everybody seems to understand that, because at 3 yards, as Joe said, if you're sitting there over confirming, that just means you're a reactive shooter, and that's fine. Everybody has reactive shooting skills. Not everybody has predictive aiming shooting skills, even aiming too. But needless to say, that's the difference. And it's very important. That is one of the most crucial skills in shooting USPSA, is those two skills. I mean, listen, there's a variety of skills that you need to be good at.
There's a laundry list.
Yeah, there's a long list of another thing that people really get really overwhelmed with is your draw speed. Drawing and reloading on a stage is probably they're least prioritized. Your draw speed has, unless you're doing a classifier, which is a completely different topic of discussion. Unless you're doing a classifier, your draw speed doesn't matter. Granted, if you're doing a 5-second draw speed, we have a problem. But if you're within the 2-second draw speed, you're perfectly fine on a stage. It is not going to hurt you. Granted, if you do it in 1 second, yeah, you're just going to be 1 second faster than everybody else. But most of the time, the stages are set up to where your draw speed is not going to really hurt you, or your reloads. Now, that being said, we are limited to 10 rounds. We do reload a lot. And at Lipsa, your reloads kind of do come into play. When we're allowed to have normal capacity magazine sizes, right? 17 rounds, 20, 23, 24. In my case, I'll be allowed to run 28 to 30 in my 170 millimeter mag length. You'll be significantly less likely to have to reload as many times as we're doing, where you'll have better hit factor scores. Yeah, you'll class higher and whatnot. But using 10 rounds, you got to have confidence in your shooting. You're limited to 10 rounds, and Joe will say, if you miss at Lipsa, your stage is pretty much done. It's very hard to make shots up at Lipsa and still have a good percentage on that stage. It's terrible, but it is what it is, and it only makes you a better shooter, actually. Most of the guys in New York are actually probably one level below where they're supposed to be, just because we only are limited to 10 rounds, and we're limited to certain classifiers because other classifiers don't really require you reloading, and you'll just slow down. So New York kind of sucks for USPSA, but hey, we make it work. We do it. We love it. This is awesome. You get to compete with a lot of guys. A lot of guys come out here egos, and I will say there's a lot of police officers, military guys that come out here, and I have the 65-year-old John Doe that has an iron sight Glock will take an absolute dump on most guys that have never done this, and I see it all the time. A lot of the high-end guys are older than me. I'm 36, and I'm pretty well-rounded, in shape. I've been a runner my whole entire life. My agility, my sprint speed is all very, very good. And there's some old guys that put me to shame, and it's pathetic. But needless to say, I strive to get better every single day. And I went from shooting in the 40% range to my first match, which I can't find. I wish I could show you guys, to shooting my last match at an 84% clip, meaning I just missed shooting an M class event by literally a 0.5%. And it hurts, but I need to get better, and that's the only way I'm going to get better. So, if Joe wants to add some more input to the video, there's Joe.
I'm good. Covered a lot here.
All right, so we'll give you guys another stage. I kind of want to give you guys a third stage to make up from last week, because I didn't give you 2 last week. I only gave you 1. So we'll be right back. We're going to do another stage. I want to find a really crappy stage. I might show you stage 4 from this event, and boy, it's a doozy.